So I'm Helen Schaefer, and this is Miss Molly. She's a Doodle, as we can see, which is definitely the most popular breed in my shop, and I'm sure most everybody else's. And Molly's gets the infamous short but not shaved, which to me here is a 2 guard comb. So that's what we're going to start to do. She also gets a retriever head, so I'll show how we do that here when we get there. All right, so I got my 2. I have her all bathed and prepped and combed and brushed. She is a little nervous about the dryer near her head, so there's some crinkly spots, but good prep work is really essential on these coats. Otherwise, you're going to spend a lot of time fighting them. One of the things that I find with Doodle owners is that they really don't know what to expect when they're asking for a groom. You know, they'll bring in pictures from Pinterest or Instagram, and everybody groans and shakes their head, myself included. But if you try to get into their head that it's not in inches, but rather in fractions of hair, so half off, less than half off, or, I tell people that this is like a crushed velvet length. And you can see she, even so, still a little damp, but we'll get that taken care of. All right. Now I'm not going straight down her legs because I do like to leave her a little style. And that's really what everybody's looking for. You know, it's easy to shave them off with a 7 blade or do a 4 everywhere. And like I said, this is a 2 guard. This gives them a little bit of fluff, and it'll give me a little bit of length to work with so that I can set in some of the finer points that I would put on, a standard breed. Poodle, terriers, things like that. Every dog has the same components. Miss Molly is an excellent girl. One of the things with adding style elements to a dog is that a lot of people try to leave more hair to make them versus less. So if this was a poodle, this would be called the return of shoulder here. So this is the point of chest. This is where her breastbone is. And a lot of people, when they're trying to build a front on a dog, they leave all this extra hair here and it kind of looks like a uniboob. But if you take this shorter here and then tighter in here, there's less hair to mat, and you're going to give the dog a little bit more style. So that's what we're going to do with her right now. I'm going to fluff this coat up. They do like her still to have her little curls, so usually when I'm done, I spray her down. I mist her with a little bit of a scissor spray. I also shaved my armpits, and I'm going to take a 4 blade to this chest. It's 1 step down from the 2 guard in length, but it takes away all of this hair that she's going to lay on in the wet grass, that gets underneath of a harness, and it's going to really remove any chance of matting down there. And then I'm just going to blend it in with my scissors when we get there. And she has to have a little bit of matting right here from her harness already. It's been a little bit since she's been in. It's a big transformation for her today. But it's just this little strip here, and you can't even see it from the side. And it really does make a big difference in maintenance. And that's really what we want. We want to groom, not for just this groom, but the next groom. I ask all of my Doodles to stay on a 4 to 6 week schedule, so that way I'm not killing myself to give them, a good haircut. Pull that out right there. Okay. Just like the front back here, a lot of people try to build a rear, and she has a very golden retriever look to her. A poodle's tail, sits up high, and hers clearly doesn't. And this is one of the things you should consider when you're doing your doodles is what parts of the dogs have they gotten? You know, some doodles do carry their tails up here, so you can do like more of a pointy, poodly kind of rear. And she has more of that golden structure. So here's her ilium and her ischium right here, the pin bone and the hip bone, and her tail's right in between. So when I'm doing this stylized kind of cut on her, even though it's very short, I'm still going to take and expose this angle back here. And that's what I would do on any purebred dog. So it still gives that elements of style, but added bonus again, there won't be any hair here for poop or knots to form. And I'm going to take this at the bend of her knee or the bend of stifle tighter as well. And that's going to give her more of, again, that style that's going to match this front and take away hair that will eventually just match. So to do that, I see where her knee's going to bend. I gently pick up the leg. I make sure that the hip and the knee are still in alignment. Anytime you're working with a dog and you're manipulating their limbs, you want to make sure that they're comfortable. Especially a lot of dogs that are bad for nails. A lot of times we don't think about it from the dog's perspective where we're just like grabbing a foot. You know, if you gently let them know that you're picking this up, they're much more compliant because they have a minute to adjust and their balance and anticipate it versus, you know, sweeping their leg out from under them. So I'm checking that, so it's right here. And with my same guard comb, but against the grain or in reverse, I'm just gonna do a quick C-scoop. So I know that because my hand's right here, this is where that bone is. I'm just scooping from this bend up to just below that bone. And then I'm going to follow that on the side, kind of like how you do a schnauzer pattern, and pull the angle in. And pulling and making this shorter here gives the illusion of a bigger muscle here. And that's why a lot of dogs have that same pattern. You see that same thigh pattern on a Springer, even on an American Cocker Spaniel, Schnauzers, Airedales, they all want big, powerful rears. And that's because most of the dogs that we do are working dogs. They're meant to do a job. And it just makes sense. You know, you want nice thighs, so does the dog. Right? So I'm clipping all that off. And now I'm just taking from my clipper, I'm going on the thickest part of the muscle, and I'm skimming straight down. Because I'm going to scissor this in. I don't want her to have stiff legs. If I'm putting up all this muscle here, I don't necessarily want to drag my blade down all of this. I want to give myself some room, again, because I'm creating a style. And this is very short. It's very, very maintainable. And I'm just going off of the dog. I'm not digging in. By skimming, I'm taking off any excess hair. And I'm starting my parallel lines. All right, so that looks good. Come back to her front. Got a little hair in my mouth. One of the things that I see a lot is that people don't clear this, and this is all my clipper work again. Up here under the chin, this is called the throat latch, and it's just like us. It's this soft part here. And when you leave all this hair here, and you try to scissor, you're scissoring everything. But a lot of times it ends up giving the dog a double chin because this is soft and flabby, just like it is on us. So I like to take my clipper and I clear the throat latch. And it's just this triangle space right here above where the throat turns. So you can feel it on the dog. This is kind of their Adam's apple, the esophagus, you know, where you would rub if you're trying to give the dog a pill and make it swallow. The bone, the front of the jaw is here, and then it's just this triangle in between. And this just sets my jawline away from my throat. So it just gives them a nice, clean, crisp look there. Again, a lot like a Schnauzer. But this is all taking hair that just gets matted and dirty and we fight with, so why keep it? If we're fighting with it, the owners are fighting with it. Another spot I like to take short is right here behind the ear. And I'm going to do a 4-blade there because the skin is very thin. And she tends to have a lot of ear infections just because her ears are so thick. That's why they're a little shorter, and we do that retriever style head. Yeah, baby girl. I know, use a nice girl. So this is, and you can see that there's some matting here already, but I'm going to clear all this out with that fork. I don't like to take a 10 there because you can't really blend it. So I take the longest blade I can get through safely. And I very, 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 very slowly back here. I do not clip or dip my clipper as I'm doing right now anywhere else except here or any place that's heavily matted, because I'm trying to let the clipper do the work. If you try to force the blade through areas like this, that's how you get the skin caught and you end up with that clipper irritation or, you know, worse, actual cuts. Seems a little tight there, so I'm going to switch to a 5 blade. Right. There we go. You can see I'm just very lightly going until my clipper stops, pulling back, and then going forward again. And you can barely tell that I did that. Right. Now that this kind of area that was still a little damp was there, I'm going to back brush. For curly coats, you can back brush and go over them again to get a nice smooth look. Or you can go in reverse on a curly coat. It's not recommended on a double coated breed that may, for whatever reason, need to be taken down with a blade, or a terrier, because their hair follicles are very hard. They grow in one direction, and going against the grain can cause things like schnauzer bumps and you know, small areas of alopecia. But on a curly coat, their follicles are not set in one direction. That's what makes it curly. It comes out every which way. So what I do is I just go, if I am going in reverse, which is a time saver for me personally, I just go up one clipper comb or one clipper blade length. So this is the one guard. And I'm just going to do it because it combs through the hair and it takes off all those little edges. And again, I don't do this on terrier coats. I don't do this on you know, if I ever have to clip down something like a Newfoundland or, you know, a German Shepherd, something with a Nordic style or primitive coat. But on your curly coats, Malteses, things like that, this isn't going to hurt them. It's not going to cause any lasting effects to the hair follicle. I'm just going to grab all of those, just like how hairdressers do men's hair. And as I'm doing this, I am pulling the skin taut from underneath. She has a lot of loose skin, and for the best results with your clippers, you want to make sure that the skin is tight. That's going to make it more comfortable for her. It's going to make sure that your clippers glide through easily. You can either pull this way from underneath and up or from over and down. If I left all this loose, you can see that the clipper blade is going to catch the skin, and then that's how you're going to get those clipper lines or anything really harsh. And you're not, it's just going to take longer too. And I always go very slowly. Again, we don't want to catch anything. We don't want to cause any discomfort. You know, this is supposed to be a spa day for them. Right. And then I switch right back to my original length, which is again the 2 guard, because she's in a shorter, more manageable style. And then I go back with the green after going against. And this way you can see all the little things coming off. And like I did back brush a little bit because she did have some of those damp areas I went to fluff up a little. But I don't need to stress her out. She's a pet. Pulling the skin taut again, especially in these areas. These are problem areas where there is a lot of loose skin and the skin turns. Ooh, okay, we did not want to do that, but that's okay. As Bob Ross said, happy accident. Just pull that down. So I didn't know what you were doing. All right. One of the things that I know, she has a very combination coat. It's not one of those really cottony doodle coats, but it's also not a very curly or coarse coat. She has some texture to her, but it's really rather thick. And you know, it really is like a very good indication of the combo of a poodle and a golden. They tend to get lines, much like a golden sheds, like sometimes raking them in the bath with an Andis rake or an Oster rake or some kind of Coke King type rake with the shampoo in them, just gently. A very fine tooth one, like 16 teeth or whatnot, will help pull out some of that undercoat. We tend to think that poodles don't shed, but they do. And so do Goldens, obviously, and so Doodles are, even if they don't shed excessively, they still will shed. There's no getting around it, hair dyes. So we have to help those coats. If you find that your dogs are getting a lot of lines and your clipper is in great condition and you've got new blades and you're still getting at on some of these dogs, one of those rakes will really, really help. All right, so we got her all clipped down. And now I'm going to go over her with some scissors. We're going to start with the back foot. Anytime you're doing legs, you want to do your feet first because obviously you don't want to spend all this time scissoring a leg and then have to crush the hair in your hand. So I'm going to brush it, make sure that everything's fluffy or well brushed out at least. And then I am going to comb everything down. Make sure that there are no toe knots. Again, she knows that I'm working on her leg, so she's anticipating me picking it up, not just sweeping it out from underneath of her. So I'm going to pull everything down with my hand. All right, babes. And I'm going to push it to the pad, but I'm not going to pinch it all up because that's how you get those like pointy feet that every doodle owner hates. I'm just going to go to the bend of the ankle. So you can see like this is where the foot flexes. And I now have all this hair that's hanging over that paw pad. So I'm just going to cut a box around it. I'm not going to go here, 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 and I'm not ever going to go across the pads because that's how, if they kick, you can really get an injury. But I'm going and cutting a box. So one side, front and back. And that's setting all of the hair from my foot. At this point, there's two ways you can do it. If you have like big Asian legs, you're going to leave the foot on the ground and you're going to scissor with the blades up and down around it. She obviously doesn't have a big Asian leg because she is, again, in a shorter, maintainable cut. So I'm going to pick her foot up and then I'm going to brush up all the hair into the center of the foot. So everything's clear on the sides for the most part. I might have to edge this up a little bit just to give it a little bit more lift, never cutting across the pads. So now that that's all up and squared, I'm going to take my scissors and cut right up and down in front of her toes. I know where my toenails are, so I don't have to worry about cutting any toes off, obviously. But that's going to set that front of the foot. So you can see if I left it down how it looks. This is how to do the round feet. up and down, following that line that you made, and then inside. It's a little hard from this angle. All right, so once you get all the hair cleared off of the sides, and I've cut in front of my toes, I've made a shape of my foot. Now that this is all up there, obviously I need to remove some bulk, but we don't want to make it too tight because then it's going to look, again, funny. It'll look a little flat like a duck foot. So I take my curves, I've cut up against my toes, like I said, and then I'm going to come over, and I'm going to come over in an arch. So I'm going to start where my tighter line is on the side, and then I'm going to kind of move out and pretend like I'm cutting over a fist, so that these knuckles form the top of my foot, so that my foot has some substance to it and is round without exposing any space in between the toes. Fluff it up one more time. So I'm going tighter on the sides, and then as I come around the front of the foot, I'm going up higher, arching away from where the actual top of the foot is, and then coming tighter down on the sides again. And once I put my foot down, maybe I have to clean up a little bit, and I'll just take my curves. Blades are up and down so that I don't pinch any of the pad accidentally, and I'll just take off any edges that I see. You can do this with thinners as well if you're more comfortable. Her toenails are a little long, so. But that gives her a nice substance to her foot, which is what we're going to bring into the leg. So we've left all this hair on the leg, and obviously it looks a little undone, like she's wearing leg warmers. But I'm going to comb this all up, and then we're going to scissor this in. I'm going to switch to my straights at this point. I like to do straights on straights and curves on curves. If you are more comfortable with chunkers or blenders, that's fine. Those are actually straights if you think about it, unless you have a pair of curved ones. So I'm going to blend all this in. The most important thing when you're scissoring a dog is to A, know where all of the flappy parts are, and then B, to scissor with your entire body. A lot of groomers stand in one spot and they go like this, but the further you move your scissors away from your body, the less control you have of them. So if you can maintain your shoulder and your elbow close to your body and just move from hip to hip and just a little of the hinge, you're going to have much better results. The less times you take your scissors away from the dog once you've started scissoring, the more smooth and velvety your finish is going to be. So knowing that I started my line here and here and I have to blend them together, I'm going to start scissoring this way. This is where I wrap that angle around. So this is the entire front of my knee. And I'm making one solid pass. And I'm just bringing these two lines together. And I can see, when viewed from the back and even from the side, you can see that this is thicker here than it is down here. She is missing some hair because she does have some allergies. So I'm going to blend this together again. And how I'm going to do that is I'm going to go up this way. So this shorter area, you always blend from the shorter to the longer area. I'm not moving my scissors away from her. I'm doing a windshield wiper motion, which means that I am rotating my scissors from the pivot point, which is that center of your scissor. And that's taking off just a little enough hair to give me a nice even line there. Then I'm going to switch back to my curves really quick because I need to take some of this hair off from back here where we set in that angle. I'm going to flip my curves in my hand so that the points are, the curve is facing into her, and I'm just following this natural curve. Just taking off a little bit of that hair. And that's just enhancing the natural shape of her leg. Okay. Then I'm going to flip them back around to the right way. And I'm going to follow the same curve that I did with the clipper and just clean up anything that's hanging out. And then we talked about setting in a tail angle, just like I do on my golden retrievers. You know, golden retrievers have a flag tail, so it's a little shorter near their butt than it is in the middle to the end. To do that, I take my curves again, and this is where that pin bone is. And I'm going to take them tips over, and I'm also doing a windshield wiper motion here and coming up into the thigh. If I was doing that on a golden, I would do it with thinning shears or a carding knife, but since this is a doodle, we can cheat with scissors. I'm then going to take my blades up and down so I'm not pinching anything, and I'm just going to clear out this little bit of hair here. And it's really just like a very fine but it makes a huge difference because now when you hold the tail out, there's no hair there except right there. Just a little cleanup. Right? And then we're going to go ahead and take in her hock because this is the hock. If you cut straight down on this, it usually makes their legs look kind of funky. If you are, again, we're leaving style here. We're not just shaving the dog down. So what I like to do with this is I will comb it up and I'll take some blenders. These are 43 tooth blenders. And I have this line here. So I'm going to go and I'm going to angle it in because that's still going to leave a little bit right here for the style. And then this is going to make it more dramatic so that this doesn't look like she has cankles. So I'm going from this point of hock, which is the longest point, and I'm angling into that back pad. So here's the back pad. I can feel it. I'm going to go at this angle, so I'm going to hit the tabletop. I'm never going to get near her pad. If you don't feel comfortable doing it this way, you can go up and down this way. You just have to be very careful to maintain your angle, or you can go up this way. And then I would put my thumb here and follow that around. And I'm just removing some thickness again because we're giving her a style. I want to watch her knee and her hip. She's not surprised by what I'm doing. And I like to step back and see what I've been doing here. All right, so that's one back leg. There's a little bit of hair here, and it's kind of a hard spot to scissor. So when I do this here, I pick the foot up, supporting her, making sure that her hip and her knee are in alignment so she's comfortable. She's like, I'm not comfortable. And then I just scissor right over top. Just take off all those little ends that are sticking out. Shake. Once you start to do this, it kind of becomes second nature to you, where you don't have to think about like, oh, what am I doing here and how am I going to scissor here? I do this on all of my pet dogs. I even do scissor the legs on my shave downs just because they're going to grow in nicer and they look nicer. It looks more complete. So we did that line on the outside of the leg. I'm going to do the same line on the inside. I don't know if she'll turn for us. Can you turn, Miss Molly? She says, I don't want to look that way. But I comb everything out from the leg, and I follow the thickest part of the thigh down. And I'm actually going to switch to my straights. You can do this with chunkers or blenders, but I'm all about speed and efficiency. When I'm angling my scissors here, I'm angling not straight, but actually this way, so that the point of my scissor is going to hit the outside of that elbow on the opposite side. Stand up, girlfriend. This is just taking off those stray hairs because, again, like, this is where they mat. And this is the point of doing this, is that I'm grooming for my next groom. She's a little overdue. She's a little more hairy than she's used to being. But I want all these split ends off, all this extra hair that we don't need can stay right here and get vacuumed up. I'm just gonna, okay. That looks pretty good. Step back and look. A lot of times when we're up close on our dogs, we don't see things like this is hanging off from the other side. Get to that. So you just always want to check your work from a distance because you're going to see things that you don't see when you're standing right here. So we're going to go to the front leg now. And the same thing. She does get some matting on her elbows, just like every other dog. So I'm going to try and make sure that this is brushed out. If there are any mats, instead of using a dematting rake, I will take my greyhound comb or my wide tooth comb, and I will put it between the skin and the knot. And she does have a little bit there. And then I'll get a cheapy pair of thinners, something that I don't mind cutting into this, but that can also handle it. You don't want to use fine finishing tools on stuff like this. But I'll just do 1 or 2 swipes and brush it out. And I'm going to hit it with the comb. And there it is, all out. And that's nice, especially like when they have like little mats on their chest or some place that's very obvious that if you have to take like a 7 blade to it, it would put a big hole in the dog. It's just a way to preserve a little bit of coat and make that client really happy. You look like a magician. All right, so same thing with the back leg. I'm going to brush through my front, just making sure I have any stray hairs off, especially after clipping. Fluff this up, fluff, fluff, fluff. Then I'm going to comb everything down. She's a thick, thick girl. Right, Miss Molly? Again, pulling all the hair down. And I'm, again, with my curves, cutting that box. So I'm going to go side, behind, the other side, never across the paw pads, and then in front. And from the front foot, I can actually see anything that's hanging down if they're comfortable in this position. Because again, you want to watch this elbow. This leg doesn't have as much range of motion as the back leg does, where the back leg can kind of go out more. The elbow only has enough, it's okay, babe, to allow their chest when they lay down. So this is it. That's as far out as her elbow will go without resistance. So you want to make sure that you're not yanking it up here and holding it in an uncomfortable position. And you also want to make sure that if you are pulling it forward, that it's also comfortable. A lot of dogs don't have, they should have a 45-degree angle here, but a lot of them don't. It's much more steep, and that gives them less range of motion. So it's something that you have to be aware of, especially if like a dog's fighting you for something. Like take a step back and like just look at the dog and see like, are they comfortable? Are they really fighting you, or are they just trying to like maintain their balance? Right? All right, so then we have that cleared on the sides. You can do this on the ground or up. I'm gonna do it up so you can see better. I'm taking my blades, they're straight up and down, and I'm going back around my box. So side, side, and the front. And these nails in the front are a little longer. Probably take a little bit more off later. It's okay, baby girl. Okay. Unlike the back foot, the front foot, unless it's certain dogs, this is called the pastern. And if you take away all of this, it makes them look weird. It ruins that column leg effect. If you're trying to do like an Asian fusion trim, it'll take away that look because you have this nice line and then it cuts in, and it shouldn't. So I never take the back right to that stop big pad on the back. I leave it a little bit fuller. On smaller dogs, you can push it all the way to the space in between those pads, and that'll give you enough for your column leg. On a larger dog, you can get away with a little bit less. Right. So same thing as the back. Now that I've cleared my sides, I'm gonna just go and take a little bit more off because I've combed it down and I can see that this is still touching the ground. And we don't want any of that. That's how they get mud in their house. Then we're gonna go ahead and brush this up now that we've created that box. And again, I'm arching. I'm gonna take it tighter from my sides and then go up and over, away from the foot. I'm not cutting into this. I know because I have her foot in my hand where her ankle is. If I cut up into here, I'm gonna create a break and I'm not gonna be able to fix that. So if you're trying to do a column leg or an Asian fusion leg, that's something you definitely want to avoid. Okay. Following my line. We'll take some more off those nails later. If you pinch your feet, leaving the nails a little bit longer can help because it gives you a guide where you cannot. And then it'll give you like a little bit of a 1/4 of an inch extra. I used to pinch my feet all the time on my Cocker Spaniels, which now I own 2 of them and I'm really good at Cocker feet, but they used to look like this, like little club feet. And it was because I was taking them too tight. All right, so we got a nice foot. It's up off the ground. Matches the size of her body because she's a bit of a meaty girl. It's all right. COVID happened to everybody, huh, girlfriend? All right, so we're gonna comb the legs up. And I've created 2 lines here, and I'm gonna go from this line that I've created here at the edge of my foot to the line I created up here. Because I can see that with her foot up and anything hanging out of it, I'm gonna pick her foot up. I'm gonna fluff and then comb up. And then I'm gonna give her like a little shake. And that's gonna let the hair sit where it wants to sit so that it'll look more natural when I put it back down. And then again, with my straights, I'm just cutting anything that's hanging outside of my line. And my scissors are not straight this way and they're not straight this way. They're angled a little bit so that I don't create any real harsh lines. Same thing with going over top. I can look from the side, blend it in. And then the inside. This is where I'll angle it out just slightly. And it's just that slight bit that they can move. And I do that because if we try to do it straight, the way that their leg is shaped on the inside, you're gonna end up cutting into the elbow. And then it'll look like a baseball bat. Oh my God. They're so loud today. And I'm gonna come from behind while she's standing. And I'm gonna go straight up and down on this back line. Straight I'm cutting anything that's hanging outside of my line. Just clean up around the sides a little bit more. She's got a little bit of a flare down here. So again, I'm just combing straight out. For dogs that have silkier hair or a little bit of less thickness to them, you can make a part in the leg. So combing all the hair from side to side and then finding those two lines. And that'll help if this back of the leg doesn't have a lot of structure to it. You know, some Goldens have that loose wavy coat. So I'm going to pull all this out, and I'm just pulling it out while she's standing. And then again, going straight down my line, cutting anything that's hanging out. Pick her foot up, give it another little shake, another little comb up. And then this is when I'm going to switch to my blenders, and I'm just going to go around and take the fine lines off. And again, this is about leaving like a little bit of style for this dog. You want to watch your wrist. Mine's bent, but it's because I'm staying out of the way of your view. I'm just taking off anything that I see that's hanging outside. Pick my leg up. You want to move around your dog so you can get a different perspective. With blenders and chunkers, it doesn't necessarily matter which way you're holding your tip of the scissor, because this is what they are meant to do. They're meant to be erasers and take any of those harsh scissor lines or clipper lines out. Right, standing back. I can see it's a little thick in here. So again, I'm combing straight out and up away from the skin. And tilting my head, I can see that line where it looks thick. You're okay, baby girl. You're being such a good girl. You smell like such a good girl. All right. Looking from the front, I could see this in here. I'm just going to fix this up a little bit in here. Again, this is with my blenders. Now remember, I took that line there, so you can't see it from the sides, but if she lays down or rolls on her belly, the owner's going to notice. So when I do this to blend it, I'm using my blenders or chunkers. Blenders are preferred here. And I'm going to angle out and up slightly. And that's just going to take this line off that, again, we can't see from the side, but if she was on her back, it'd be really short right here and then like longer here. As that grows in, it will become more prominent, and we don't want that, because when there's a big difference of hair there and it's not blended in, that's when we tend to get more mats, because this hair will have more movement. So I'm angling up and away, and I'm just following the natural shape of her belly. You see I took off a lot of those little stray hairs. Same thing right here. In here, I'm doing, again, that windshield wiper motion where I'm just rotating my scissors, not necessarily moving them. They're moving a little bit, but not as much as like going back and forth. It's more how I'm angling the tips. Let's blend a little bit more back here. All right. I'll comb everything down, make sure that I'm satisfied. Obviously the other. Okay. All right, I don't see anything really sticking out. She's got some style there. Now I'm going to move on to her chest and her head. Like we said earlier that this is that return. I want to make this a little bit more prominent because this is, as we saw earlier, she had a mat on her elbow. I shave out the armpits and I did the chest. Because she does wear a harness, this area is also going to be prone to matting. So when I set this, I pick the foot up slightly, and then I let her take it back or I push it back like she was taking a step. She's like, you can give me my foot back now. So when we do this, I then take my blenders or a pair of straights, and I make a little notch here. And I'm angling into where that muscle is coming around. And then once I have that notch, it's my little guide, I'm going to do a little C curve like I did back on the back leg with the blenders, but right here, and that's going to put the leg underneath of her and give her a little bit of a front. And then I can follow that around on the shoulder a little bit. You can go this way. And that's just going to take off a little bit of that hair. So this is great for dogs that wear harnesses. It's also how we set in the fronts on our purebred breed standard dogs. Okay. And I'm going to just brush all this. Anything that's hanging out here, I make my throats really flat. I usually take them slightly tighter than the body. Because again, this is a place that doesn't need excess hair. You know, the beard drips water down on them. They wear a harness or a collar or a bandana, and it all just kind of gets a little tangly. So just blending it off a little bit, just making it a little tighter so there's just a little less hair there. And that'll set in everything. So we've got some hair back here, but we'll deal with that later. So like I said earlier, I set my jawline with my clipper. We took behind the ear tighter. So this is the back of my jawline. This is literally, I could feel her jaw back here. So I just followed that. And that is because, you know, everybody scratches their ears, touches their head. I clipped off under here in that throat latch to remove all that extra hair. So that just leaves the shape of my head. She gets a retriever style head, which here means that it's very short on top, which you can see Mom helped a little bit at home. The cheeks are a little tighter than a teddy bear head would be. The ears are, you know, furry but short. And then there's very little beard left. So how I start that again is we did all that clipper work. Then I'm going to take, woo! Oh my goodness, huh? Then I'm going to take my comb, I'm going to comb everything down on the sides. I'm going to pull the ear forward. And then I'm going to follow and scissor that line. So it's everything that is hanging over my clipper lines. And I'm very, very careful with where the end of my ear is. I'm very aware of that. You don't want any accidents, especially on ears. And that just establishes that clean line. Her mouth's a little open, so we're going to have to take a little bit more off of there. okay. We're allowed to breathe. Now she does have very long eyelashes. So then when I do this, I just simply put my thumb over them. And I do one side and then the other. When I cut my visor, I have my blade up and down so that I'm not going to pinch in on her. And then I bevel it just slightly outward. So the blades are nowhere near her skin, nowhere near her eyelid. I'm lifting up with that bottom blade and coming down with the top, with the thumb blade. And I go just slightly past the corner of the eye. If I feel I'm catching any eyelashes, I feel it under my thumb because it feels like the hair is being pulled. So that way I know to back up and readjust the tip of my blade. Okay. Eyelashes intact. Do it on this side. I'm right-handed, so it's a little awkward, but I'm going to put these ones under my ring finger, middle finger, grabbing underneath. Same thing, I'm coming all this forward, up and down, slightly out, pulling out that hair up with my lower blade, and then coming down with that top. And that creates that nice ledge that's going to give the lift away from the eyes. Because that's what they don't like. They don't like the hair in the eyes. And then we're just going to blend this in together. This is about the length that I would normally do on her. And again, because she hasn't been in a little bit, Mom helped. So we're just going to follow that line that I created. And I'm going around the head. And I look from the side, and it's going to be a very flat top. Because you want to think like a golden retriever. You know, they have that kind of like flat, just slightly curved at the sides. And this is great for those people who don't want a big shaggy head, but don't want you to poodle their doodle. This is our go-to. I'm going to pull it all forward again. Give a little shake. If you have a dog with like a really, really thick coat or even like one of the really wavy coats, you can always spray it. A little scissor spray really helps. Oh, these daycare dogs are loud. To clear the hair out. Okay. Then we're going to do under the chin. So when I do my heads, I always set the top or the bottom first. And then the top and the bottom are done first. Whether I do the bottom first or the top, it doesn't matter to me. But I do that because if I try to take my cheeks in, then I'm ending up kind of almost with like a trapezoid because I'm trying to create a line that's not there yet. Everything's connect the dots when you're grooming a dog, so just like we did with the legs, where I have a line here and here, so I have a visual field to follow. So I'm going to take this beard short because I know she likes it short, and then I'm going to match it to the height of this. So this is about my thumb, so her beard's going to be about her, from below her nose to the end of her beard is going to be about my thumb. And that's going to put her eyes in the center of her head. And that's what gives them that really nice, soft, sweet expression, is really like highlighting the eyes of the face. So I can see that I'm going to cut about this much off of her beard. And I'm just going to make one straight cut all the way back, even where I have already trimmed up my throat latch. And I'm going to comb down to the sides here. Comb down to the side. Anything that's hanging outside of my line that I just made, I'm going to trim off. That on both sides. And then again in the front. The hair always grows while you're doing it. Right. So once I've done that, now I'm going to set the shape of my muzzle. and then we're going to go into the cheeks from there. I'm going to comb all this out, make sure there's no like stray hairs or little knots. Looks like Mom helped a little bit over here too. That's okay. We're going to blend it all together. So this is when I again take my blenders. I'm going to close her mouth gently. I'm going to hold it closed. And just like we did underneath on her belly, I'm going to angle out and up. That's going to give this like a rounder shape to it, a softer shape. And it's going to keep the hair from getting into her mouth and around her teeth. We don't want food and things to get caught on the teeth. That's how they, it just contributes to the overall dental uncleanliness when that happens. And also matting and that gross, like greasy beard stuff. Nobody likes that. So I am angled out and up, and that's going to hold the hair away, blending it back. And again, we're doing a retriever head. So if you think about a golden, they have that like nice square muzzle. A lot of people take a clipper comb to this, but then when it grows back in, it gets bushy and bushy and bushy. This gives it that squared off, shorter look to it without taking it and making it poofy. Do the one side. Sometimes I see little stray hairs. I'm just going to whack them off. Go ahead and do this side. And this is where Mom helped, so I'm going to try and blend that in as I come through. She doesn't want to close her mouth. That's okay. Come on. Good girl. Pulling the hair out. Again, you can see that they are angled up and away. As I'm coming into where Mom helped, I can go over and pull a little bit more off. And this is just pulling everything back towards my cheeks that I'm going to set in. Comb everything down again. See whatever's hanging out that I need to trim off still. It's okay. If you do get a dog that's super poofy in the face, and you, from clipper combing or using thinning shears to box in, again, just like on the body, if you're getting a bunch of clipper lines, you can use a rake to rake through all this thickness. And that'll pull out any of that extra shedding hair, the hair that's stuck in that hair follicle. Okay. Nice crystalline on that side. Okay, we got some straggles here. Nice. Straggly, straggly, straggly. All right. Step back, make sure everything's even. Always watching where my eyelashes are. Quick way to get a bad Google review if you cut off the eyelashes. All right. One thing I love to do is I love to take my brush and just brush up these little stray hairs, the ones that they lick. And then I'll put my thumb right in front so that if she does try to lick them back while I'm doing this, she's only getting my thumb. And then I just thinning shear them off. Just gives the face a cleaner appearance. Obviously don't do that on a dog that's prone to biting. That's not like okay with their face being handled. Molly's a real good sport here. Aren't you, girlfriend? You're a very good girl. Okay, and then again, just comb out, especially with Doodles, Bichons, Schnauzers. When you're working on their coats like this, a lot of times, they do tend to suck in that beard hair. So you just want to constantly check your work, or at least a couple of times. All right, so now we are almost done. Now we're going to do our cheeks. So you can see quite poofy in the cheek. And this isn't a bad face. You know, it's kind of quite cute, but it's just not what her style is. So we are going to take this ear and we're going to flip it back, and I'm now going to connect this top line to that bottom line. And I'm going to do that by cutting in basically a triangle here. So I'm going to leave this line here, clear this out, and up here, and just leave like a little bit more fullness along what would be her cheekbone. So always aware of where my ear is. Do it from this side. I can hold my ear. I have my curves here, and I'm going, again, up and away. I know where my line is. Normally I would do this from the front, but then you wouldn't be able to see anything. So I'm cutting this triangle. No eyelashes. I'm taking all that thickness away and giving her kind of a nice flat plane of cheek. Again, we are embracing the golden side of the golden doodle on this head. So we want her ears to lay nice and flat. So you can see, hopefully, the difference there, where this ear is laying much tighter to her head than this one is currently. And that's what we want. We want to remove all this bulk. The bonus of this is that, again, this clears out when she has all these ear problems, all of this hair that would normally be there and holding in the sebum and keeping out the air. I'm actually going to clear this little corner right here. I'm just going to hold her ear back. And then that way it's completely clear. And make the other side match. Again, holding the ear away and trimming out that triangle. And so she still has a lot of personality, but not a lot of hair. And that's the goal, you know, to make the client happy and also give ourselves a little bit of a break. Okay. And then we just trim off the ends of her ears. Ends of the ears, ends of the tail. They like a nice long tail on her. Anything back here. And this is hair from the other side that will clip off later. On my ears for this trim, I pick them up and I just follow along the natural edge. And then that way. Just trim that off so you can see. Same thing with the tail. Shake it out. So then last step, trim the tail. She gets some knots, especially near her butt, so I'm just going to scissor right here real quick. It's like a, not really like a poodle band, but almost. And then I'm going to connect the dots. So I start and I'm just taking off any of those loose split ends that are going to continuously mat because they're damaged. Give it a little shake, like she's wagging her tail. Step back. There we go. Miss Molly and her Doodle retriever clip.